Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests, and welcome to the Rotary Club of Toledo. Now would be a great time for you to check in that you're here at this meeting of the Rotary Club of Toledo, and then be sure to silence your phones. I'd like to ask Mary Westfall to come to the podium to deliver the reflection and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, President Cindy. Dear God, we come before you today seeking your transformative power in our lives and in our communities. We ask that you help us to see the areas of our lives that need to be changed, and that you give us the strength, the courage, and the wisdom to make these changes. Help us to be humble enough to accept your help and wise enough to follow your guidance. We pray for your blessings on all of our relationships, that they may be strengthened and healed. We ask for your guidance in our work and in all of our endeavors. And above all, we thank you for your love and your mercy, and we pledge to follow your will by doing good in the world. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mary. I'd like to take a minute to thank Brent Kuzno and Browning Kuzno, as they are the meeting sponsors for June. Thank you, Brent. As we approach the new year in July, we have many opportunities for other individuals or companies to become sponsors for our monthly meeting, or our meetings. So if you'd like to reach out to Jackie and let her know if you're interested, that would be great. If anyone has any guests with them, can you please take them to the floor mic and introduce them? And we'd like to ask our visiting Rotarians to go to the floor mic as well and introduce yourselves.
Hi, President Cindy. I would like to introduce Jim Ravis. He is the Executive Director of the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Toledo and will be formally inducted into Rotary next Monday.
Great. All right. Welcome, Jim.
Yeah, thank you, and looking forward to it. And one of the things that I shared earlier was that my great-grandfather, grandfather, and uncle, who are all Rotarians, are finally saying, "Jim, it's about time." So thank you.
President Cindy, I want to introduce Pat Cook. She's with Vision Ministries. She actually applied for a grant through the youth committee and wanted to learn more about Rotary. So here she is.
All right. Welcome, Pat.
Thank you so much for your hospitality. As I told Steve as I was waiting for him to get here, so many people came up and introduced themselves and made me feel very comfortable, so thank you for that. And it's just a pleasure to be here to learn more about the Rotary.
Welcome.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sharon Trabick from Mommy Rotary. I'm here in a number of different capacities, but not the least of which is that I'm going to be taking on the role of Chief of Staff for Tim Ryan when he is District Governor in 2024-25. So, thank you.
All right. Welcome, Sharon.
My name's Sean Crandall. I'm from Waterville Rotary, and I'm a guest of Karen over here, and want to thank her for our new swag for our company with our hats and our mugs that I brought to show off. She's a business neighbor in the complex that we're in. I've been a Rotary member for about a year now, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Welcome.
So I'm glad to have with me today Mr. Reginald Temple, who's the Vice President and Director of Community Development for Premier Bank. So he's here.
Good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you again, Madam President. Dustin Dell here, professional speaker. Most of you know me, I spoke here. A new pivot into executive coaching, so now Dustin Dell Executive Coaching, here with Reynolds Corner Rotary. Thank you.
Glad to have you, Dustin.
Hello, President Cindy. Today with me is my partner, Cindy Allen, who came because she needs a ride home. So.
Thank you. You've met Tim. You know Tim's chief in Sharon, and I'm part of the tribe that's going to be following him around for the next 2 years. So thank you, and nice meeting you all.
Glad to have you here, Cindy. Could Max Reddish please go to the floor mic and do an update on sound the alarm?
This thing comes off, right?
I think, yeah.
I always feel more comfortable lifting it up like this. Can you guys hear me? Okay, hey guys, I'm here to talk about two things today, actually. First off, let's talk about the membership awards ceremony coming up next week on June 15th. That's a Thursday. It's going to be at Shoemaker Loop in Kenrick. This is going to be an event from 5:30 p.m. Through, I think, 9, something like that. So I've got the start time, but not the end time on here. This is going to be hosted by the smart and beautiful and energetic Allison Hammonds and myself, but we need your participation for it to be successful. So as we speak, you all should have an email in your inbox right now from Sierra that has two things, both a link to the RSVP page, so you can go there, look at your schedule, see that you've got nothing going on next Thursday evening. RSVP, have a couple cocktails with us and have some fun. And the second thing is for the awards themselves, which are not multiple choice. This is an opportunity for you to think a little bit about all of the participants in the Rotary who have stood out and go above and beyond. And we've got 4 categories. We've got Member of the Year, Committee Member of the Year, New Member, and Leadership Member of the Year. So this is your opportunity to go on, recognize 4 individuals, and we can recognize them all together next Thursday evening at 5:30. The next thing I have to talk about is the Red Cross Sound the Alarm event that we have coming on June 17th. That's the following Saturday. This will give you an opportunity to go door to door and physically install smoke alarms in community members' homes that need it. We'll be installing smoke alarms, and we'll be setting up fire safety evacuation programs for the folks in these communities as well. There'll be a 4-hour commitment, sometime early morning through mid-afternoon, and it's a really good cause. We're looking to get a few more people volunteering for that, so we'll be sending out an Eventbrite for that a little bit later this evening as well. So look for a good opportunity to get just blown up in your email, and volunteer opportunities are coming your way. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Max. I hope that most of you are able to attend both of these events, as they've put a lot of effort into it, and they're also for good causes with the Sound the Alarm. Next up, I'd like to have Luke King come to the floor mic and introduce a new club, or committee opportunity, or a club.
Merci, Madame Présidente. J'ai l'honneur de vous annoncer un nouveau club au sein de notre club. Ce sera le club français. Nous allons se réunir presque chaque mois pour un café et un croissant. Si vous voulez nous joindre, vous êtes tous bienvenus. Does anyone need a translation? Yes? No? Okay. We're having a new club, a club within our club. It's a French club, and you're all welcome to join us. We'll probably do it about once a month. We already have 4 members who have signed up, and you'll be joining us for coffee and croissants, but you have to say croissant. You can't say just croissant. So please join us. There'll be more information. If you'd like to get more information today, just see me after the meeting, but there'll be more information forthcoming in the spoke. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke, and thank you, Tim Ryan, for helping get that kicked off. Where is Raina? Could Raina Dawson please join me at the podium? Raina's here today for her new member orientation, and which is surprising. She's probably been at the podium more than some of you that have been members for a really long time. So we were a little slow to get her up here, but she's been very active as a member, and she's going to be outstanding going forward. So at this time, I think we have a little clip from her sponsor, Heather Carnes, in a video since Heather could not make it today.
Good afternoon, President Cindy, Raina, and all Toledo Rotarians and guests. Raina, I wish I was attending today's meeting and could reintroduce you in person and spend some time getting caught up afterward. We're about due. As I was reflecting on what I would say today, I realized that we've known each other since 2017. We first met at Toledo Law when you were just starting your legal education. Boy, how time flies. For those Rotarians who've had the chance to meet Raina, it probably won't surprise you to know that from the time she started law school, Raina was involved in absolutely everything. You see, Raina's way to do things is by jumping in with both feet and then making sure she gets in up to her elbows too. More importantly, she didn't just do things. She showed up, she took notice. She took opportunities to listen, learn, and connect with alumni, practicing attorneys, the community. She accepted invitations to premier events. She didn't
I know, right? Wow.
She's telling the truth, I promise.
Good afternoon. Met at Toledo Law when you were just starting your legal education. Boy, how time flies. For those Rotarians who've had the chance to meet Raina, it probably won't surprise you to know that from the time she started law school, Raina was involved in absolutely everything. You see, Raina's way to do things is by jumping in with both feet and then making sure she gets in up to her elbows too. More importantly, she didn't just do things. She showed up, she took notice. She took opportunities to listen, learn, and connect with alumni, practicing attorneys, the community. She accepted invitations to premier events. She didn't care about who she had to introduce herself to. She participated in student organizations, and all while pursuing her legal studies. She practiced one of my favorite lessons taught by retired Toledo Law professor Ben Davis. It's a lesson I refer to often, and it's just say yes. When you say yes to opportunities, you never know where those might lead. Raina employs the same approach everywhere she goes, including during her time in Rotary. She has attended happy hours and social events. She has helped to score our annual 4-way test speech contest entries. She has attended Rotary Leadership Institute 1, 2, and 3. And Raina attended a Foundation Advisory Committee meeting recently to award grant money. And after that meeting, she posted, "One of my favorite days of the year. Rotary is a special organization. We have fun, we perform acts of service, and engage in important conversations, and make a difference in the lives of countless people. Did I mention we have fun? I'm so proud to be a Rotarian." Toledo Rotarians, if you have Raina on your team, at your event, at your table, or in your organization, she will be all in. In an interview of Raina done by Toledo City Paper earlier this spring, Raina said she was known for her smile. Raina, you do have a killer smile, and a smile that can make anyone feel like they met their new best friend. But I think another quality that you're known for is your authenticity and collaborative spirit. Thank you for sharing your gifts with Toledo Rotary. I can't wait to catch up soon.
Okay, now that I'm teared up, okay, that was very sweet. I'm excited to be a Rotarian. Shout out to the IT team because I hosted a driver's license reinstatement clinic last week, and Lord, if I couldn't connect to the internet, nobody was going to get a license. So I appreciate everything that you all do, and I look forward to working with you all in the future. And please stay hydrated. Hopefully it rains this weekend so we can get some green grass. Right? See you next Thursday.
You're so welcome, Raina, and thank you for all you're doing already with, for the Rotary Club. And thank you, Heather. That was great video presentation. All right, at this time, I'd like to ask the following individuals to come to the podium to receive their badges. They've met the 6-month membership requirement. If Haas Joseph or Monique Ward are in the room? Nope. Okay, another time. Okay, every year, our Vocational Services Committee hosts the 4-way speech contest for local high school students. And they, this year, submitted a 90-second speech video focused on 3 topics, peace, justice, or conflict resolution, and following the 4-way test guidelines. We'd like to play this year's winner's video for you, written by Nicole Stein.
According to the study, Changing Public Attitude Towards the Criminal Justice System, public opinion on crime and criminal justice has fundamentally shifted over the past few years. Today, the public favors an approach dealing with the root of crime over strict sentencing by a 2-to-1 margin, 65% to 32%. Is it the truth? Well, the shift has primarily occurred in those groups who traditionally favored a more punitive approach to criminal justice. In fact, today, a solid majority of every demographic group supports an approach dealing with the causes of crime instead. Crime, no, justice in America is skewed. It is far from perfect, but it is changing, and as it does, we must ask, is it fair to all concerned? The answer is no. So will it build goodwill? And when we ask that, the answer in the status quo is no, but we are giving potential for the future. But before we look at the future, let's look at the now. Studies estimate between 4 to 6% of people incarcerated in U.S. jails and prisons are actually innocent. If 5% of individuals are actually innocent, that means that 1 in 20 criminal cases result in a wrongful conviction. This is the reality. This is what we're up against. So when we ask ourselves if the justice system is beneficial to all concerned, the answer is no. Millions of people are harmed, convicted, wrongfully punished, or worse. We need change. But on the bright side, we are working towards it. Thank you.
I believe Nicole is here with us today, or supposed to be. Oh, she is. Come on up. For all her hard work, she has received the first prize.
I just wanted to say really quickly, thank you so much for the opportunity and of course for your hospitality today, and the competition itself has been absolutely amazing, and I just wanted to say thank you. It is an amazing opportunity.
Nice work there. We have a message from the coach at Wauseon High School. She's a speech coach by the name of, I don't have her first name, sorry, Coach Miller. And she has encouraged all of her students to participate in this contest, and I believe the last couple of years it's been students from Wauseon that have won this contest. So she asked me to read something off since she couldn't make it. I want to thank you again for your awarding Nicole this honor, as well as for our other students' recognition, and for all that the Rotary is doing through its 4-way test speech contest to encourage considerate and upright thinking in the young people who participate. I know that the process of writing their speeches has benefited the students from Wauseon who took advantage of the opportunity. So again, many thanks to your group for all that they do to help make the world a better place. Congratulations, Nicole. All right, now what you all are here for, an update on our transformational projects. Could I please have Adam Cassie, Janina Douglas, Candace Harrison, and Dick Wolf join me on stage? As they're walking up here, I'll get started. So we're here today to get an update on the status of our Rotary Club's transformational projects that were started back in 2019. And as you can imagine, not much has happened with them because pretty soon after we got them selected, COVID hit and they were somewhat halted except for one. So the funds have been committed and these presenters are going to let us know what has been used as far as the funds and what we have left. And from here today, after we hear the presentations, we will try to decide what we're going to do going forward. We'll be making a vote next week and deciding whether we will continue with these transformational projects or not with the funds that we have remaining. So before we get started, I briefly just want to go over what a transformational project is. It's a project that affects a broad sector of the community. It's likely to be over a multi-year commitment. It has a sustainable goal of making a significant long-term and positive impact. It's measurable. It fully utilizes the assets of our club to include time, talents, and funding. And it has the overwhelming support of our Rotary Club and has been designated and approved by our club. The projects that we have right now and who are leading the way are, we have pre-K, which is being led by Candace Harrison. Dick Wolf is at the helm of lead abatement. Janina Douglas has spearheaded the water advocacy project since inception, and she will be turning this over to Adam Cassie should we choose to continue with that. How much support, oh my goodness, I can't read my words. How much funding do we have remaining for these projects going forward? We currently have $107,342.61. That amount is in an investment and it varies a little bit, sometimes gaining as you would know, and sometimes losing. Our club keeps this fund separately from our foundation plans at the Greater Toledo Community Foundation. So before we proceed, there are a few questions that we'll need answered today, and also you'll be able to find some of these answers out in the spoke or on the website for future. Should the projects move forward? Do we have the money, focus, bandwidth, and partnerships for success? Should the projects have partners? And is our club prepared to make the long-term commitment to see these projects through? And with that, I'm going to join these guys over here. Am I ready? Yep, okay. So it's just going to be a question and answer interview. So I'm going to start with each one being able to answer the questions about what the current status is and what they see the project being going forward. So I'll start with Janina with the water project. And so tell us what you think, what you have done so far, and go ahead.
In order to do that, I'm going to take all of us back 9 years. This is certainly the longest running project in terms of continuous before it was transformational. Sounds like it went off. Okay. 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 So if you go back 9 years, think of August 2014. Let's have a show of hands. We have a lot of new members here. Who all was here in Toledo in August of 2014? That's pretty much everybody, okay? But there's a lot of people that weren't. On Saturday morning, August 2nd, we all got up to an announcement on our TVs, on our phones, whatever it was, that said, don't use your water. It is unsafe. Don't use it for eating, cooking. Don't use it for drinking. Don't shower in it, don't touch it, and don't boil it. It'll just make it worse. Now, as bad as that was for all of us as individual adults, think about what it was for people with children who couldn't wash them, people in hospitals who didn't have water for their patients. We can never let that happen again. It is devastating and frightening to even think about it. So shortly after that incident, Marcy Kaptur was here as a speaker and challenged Rotary, specifically Toledo Rotary, to take action and do something to be part of the solution. And we were so fortunate to have the leadership of Eric Fankhauser and Sharon Skilleter, who for 2 years led the effort to put on very large, very successful water conferences. Both of those conferences were held right here in downtown Toledo and had over 400 people in attendance at them. And that was in the early days of our trying to help the community understand what the problems were with our water. So we really fulfilled that obligation in those 2 years. That effort was supported not only by this club, it wasn't called a transformational project then, but we were funded by this club and by the district jointly. Then, after that, we started doing tours. We went to the demonstration farms down on the Auglaize watershed. We went to Stone Lab. We held a number of activities. We collaborated with the Black Swamp Conservancy to plant 1,000 trees on the forest preserve. We participated in the Toledo Waterways Initiative Public Council, and that Waterways Initiative is what stopped Toledo's storm sewers from emptying out into the Maumee River when a big storm hit. If you've heard about the problems they have in Maumee, then unfortunately they're being resolved now, but unfortunately were not resolved a few years ago. Toledo spent over $520 million to separate storm sewers and to build retention basins all over the city, so that now all of our stormwater, except in extreme storms like over 100-year storms, is treated before it goes out into the Maumee. We supported the development of a winning documentary called The Eerie Situation, thanks to Tom Backoff. I don't know if Tom's here today. He was instrumental in that. We've arranged speakers to try and keep the club informed pretty much every year. Then the project became a transformational project. And what we said was everything we had learned, we believed that the best thing that we could do to help the situation here was to become advocates and to talk with whether it's academics, whether it's legislators, whoever that is, in a position of power to make change happen, and let them know two things. One, that this was definitely a high priority with Rotary, and secondly, something that Chris Anderson brought to the table, which was a whole new approach to collaborating with people you don't always agree with. Because as we all know, there's at least two sides, more like 3, 4, 5, and 6 sides to this argument. And sometimes it is absolutely an argument. That transformational effort went on during COVID. We had applied for funds because before COVID started, we believed we were going to be traveling to meetings with people, including down to Columbus or maybe even to Washington, D.C. With COVID, the traveling got pared back and most of it was done on Zoom calls. But just so you know, this committee was not at all sitting on our hands during COVID. We were, in fact, putting in over 450 hours on the phone on Zoom calls with people. We had over 68 different Zoom call meetings in that period of time. So, and we did all that without having to spend money because we were doing it on Zoom calls. So you all got a bargain. Last year, thanks to Tim Ryan, Justin Glover of the Maumee Club, and not only our club, but our district, we struck out in a new direction. And that is the development of wetlands restoration projects. If you have heard of this before, the wetlands are called, the nickname is, the wetlands are the kidneys of a watershed. And Adam's going to talk a little bit more about this, but we believe that over the course of the next 3 years, multiple projects could be done because the method that we've developed for supporting these projects excites people, has gotten significant participation. Justin and Tim worked with the Black Swamp Conservancy, but also worked with, I think it was a total of 12 clubs that participated in that and all donated to that effort. And we now have a conservancy that has Rotary's name full on it. You go out there to take a walk and you're going to see not only our Rotary spoke, but the name Rotary prominently displayed. And this could happen up and down our watershed. So I'm going to turn this over to Adam and he'll tell you a little bit about how that would be accomplished.
Right, so moving forward, to follow up, the problem of Toledo's water coming into Toledo is not going to be solved in Toledo. By the time it gets here, there's so much water in the Maumee River, and it is already got a lot of nutrients that have been polluted into that water. So we really do need to look further upstream. We need to get as far upstream as we can and plant as many trees as we can. Lake Erie provides drinking water. As we know, it's vital to wildlife, different animals, aquatic and birds, but also Great Lakes economic activity. That's tourism, that's recreation, supports about 1.5 million jobs around the Great Lakes. Every bit of nutrients that we can pull out of Lake Erie and the Maumee River helps. There's still a lot of advocacy that needs to be done to try to get that pollution from not going into the river to begin with, but we know how to get it out. It's plant more trees. The trees slow water, so it gets absorbed and filters better, reduces erosion, and that's just really the benefits to the water. As I mentioned, wildlife, of course. Trees are important to make Toledo and our area more resilient to climate change, and it improves the human health. So we're looking to model what we did in Liberty Center. We've got 3 locations lined up. We've already done site visits down at Grand Lake St. Mary's. We've met with advocates down there, the Rotary Club, the city of St. Mary's. We've also had some connections with a project in Sandusky Bay and are looking at a partnership with District 6400, which is Ontario and south of Detroit, as well as 6380, which is Ann Arbor. So we've got 3 projects already lined up. Easily could continue to move those forward, looking at a price tag of $20,000 to continue each of those 3 projects annually. All projects would have a local advocate, very similar to what we did in Liberty Center. They would include a ribbon cutting, they would include signage, promoting Rotary. They would leverage Toledo's funding to increase that funding, to work with other Rotary clubs, to work with districts, to work with international, Rotary International, and we work with nature conservancies and land conservancies as well. And in the end, we would improve water quality in Toledo and create a more sustainable future.
Thank you. Thank you both. Very.
In terms of lead abatement, I think we're all aware of the detrimental effects of excessive lead exposure, especially in children. Right off the bat, these transformational projects, water was kind of a carryover. They were adopted in 2019 at the end of my presidency, so they're all near and dear to my heart. But shortly after, at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, we did contribute $10,000 of the transformational funds to TPS for testing of incoming kindergartners for lead exposure. Then the ultimate excuse, COVID, happened. And it was extremely bad for the lead abatement efforts in that to really do anything practical, you have to send inspectors and contractors who are certified into homes and apartments, and that couldn't be done at that time. We're also relying on the City of Toledo ordinance regarding lead abatement. As you probably know, the first one was knocked out. The second one, litigation is pending. It's being challenged again by apartment owners, and it's just kind of in limbo now, so that's been difficult. I did early on become part of the local lead coalition, which is a group of very concerned citizens, very well-meaning folks who meet time to time, and Mike McIntyre has recently been with that group. They are pretty much just focused on this lead ordinance, which is fine, but it's very narrow. I also participated in several Zoom and phone calls with the City of Toledo and their division of the neighborhood department that were focused on lead abatement. Their leadership has changed once or twice for the last 2 or 3 years. That's been an issue. So we've discovered since then there's a model in Syracuse, New York. Syracuse has been addressing this for almost 30 years. And the first thing they did was they got together business leaders, government leaders, healthcare professionals, contractors, inspectors, and the people who are going to be affected, the owner-occupants and the landlords who have to get this work done. And so they started from the ground up to get buy-in from everyone and developed a plan. They didn't force-feed the solution. They got the players involved to develop a way to approach this. And one of the key aspects, I might talk a little bit later, time permitting, if there's questions, answers, is they developed a nonprofit called Home Headquarters, which is a one-stop shop ombudsman to address residential issues, lead, radon, other issues. But these folks match people with funding. There's a lot of government HUD funding, state funding to abate the lead problems. They give scholarships to landlords and contractors to be trained. They make forgivable loans to landlords and owners to make the changes that are needed. And there are strings attached to it. They have to comply with certain aspects. And this group also coordinates with the county and city governments as to how to approach these items. So where I see Rotary going, I mean, we have the potential, we have the connections, we have the membership to be the catalyst to get the players involved, to get them at the table, to have a dialogue, to have a conversation, and get input from everybody so there's a buy-in to this. And then we need to help develop an organization that's going to be in the forefront to address these issues. And it's a real volunteer effort. And I don't see a lot of financial effort on Rotary's part coming out of the 107,000 or whatever. It's the leadership and the persistence and the boots on the ground to get the community involved, because folks, whether Rotary does it or not, something needs to be done about this problem. And with all, I admire the government, I admire the coalition for trying to do things, but it's going to take a bigger effort, and it's going to take partners to do it.
Thank you, Dick.
Okay, universal pre-K. So we started this conversation also in 2019, and the conversation began because there was a citywide effort to start universal pre-K, which would give every young person the opportunity to receive quality education prior to kindergarten. And this was because, well, one, it was just a profound need. 65% of the kindergartners at that time were entering TPS developmentally behind. Our friends at the United Way will tell us that children who enter kindergarten who have not attended preschool start school at a deficit of 10,000 words, as this relates or compares to their counterparts who do go to preschool. So those numbers were alarming, and I think the city at the time and currently thought that that was significant enough to take action and have a levy. So in the meantime, there was a lot of community support, a lot of Rotarians involved in community organizations were also actively helping in terms of advocacy. And Rotary decided at that time that they would like to be a part of the conversation, but also be a part of the solution. And so we accepted that as part, or we selected, I should say, that as part of our decision to take universal pre-K as a transformational project. So what we did, and before I get into what we did, what happened initially, there was research being done, because if anybody's familiar with this work, it already is happening in Dayton. And so there was already a model to look at. The Toledo Community Foundation was supportive in providing a consultant to come and research our community to determine just the feasibility of something like universal pre-K. and it was determined, it can be done, and then it went to a levy. So in that time, we decided, okay, we have a large sum of money that we would like to contribute, but at that time, it was very much not really specific how we would help. And again, transformational projects need to be able to be measurable. So to give money to a project in full that we really didn't know kind of where it was going to go because it was in the process of being put on the levy, we had a number that we had earmarked for universal pre-K regardless, but initially as a kind of this is our commitment to say that we're going to be a part of this long term, we gave $10,000 initially. So that's where we started. But our initial commitment was, should I go into the full amount? Our initial commitment was $100,000, but you'll hear why it's so expensive. It was so expensive. But the unfortunate thing was that, well, first of all, COVID happened. But the COVID did not have anything to do with the levy not passing. There is a multitude of speculation as to why the levy did not pass, but that is not really for us to, mull over. The long story short is that it didn't pass. And so universal pre-K was not a reality at that time. So then COVID happened. So obviously children were home, and now they're even more delayed longer out. So where you have kids coming in and they haven't had pre-K, some of those children started school home. They started school at home. They didn't even have an opportunity to go to a regular child care, much less an early childhood center. So in the meantime, we have an organization locally that started called Hope Toledo. Some of you may or may not have heard of it. And they decided to take on early childhood education in the form of universal pre-K, but they had to do it because I don't want to say building the plane while they were flying it, but they started an organization that pretty much took on the approach of, a few child care centers at a time. Well, since COVID, where things currently stand now, the majority of the kids are still behind as they're coming into kindergarten, but Hope now has 10 centers, and they're in the process of getting ready to double that to 20. Through funding, it was 2 big press conferences where Hope Toledo is going to receive a significant amount of money to be able to increase the number of children that they serve through dollars that are allocated from the city of Toledo as well as some other partners. And they're really doing strong work to prepare students in the community for the next level of education, which would be kindergarten. Because the problem is, and many of you, if you're in education or you're adjacent to education, when you start school, you're learning how to read up until 3rd grade. And then 3rd grade, you're reading to learn. So if you come in the building or you come in the door behind, you're going to be behind forever. And it really impacts. And so what happens is when you don't have those interventions and those systems in place beforehand, then you have those interventions that are necessary on the end. So things like students who, like I said, are behind, students who are not passing, it impacts graduation rates. And it ultimately impacts our community and impacts our economy because we have people who are just not ready for the workforce. And all of that, believe it or not, starts before they start kindergarten. So I just had a couple of statistics, or not statistics, but just things that Hope Toledo seeks to do. And hopefully you can kind of see where I'm going with what my proposal would be for Rotary and our involvement now, because we have something strategic and specific that we can focus on and measure. But Hope Toledo is seeking to get all 4-year-olds access to high-quality preschool through public schools and community providers, provide families with tuition assistance on a sliding scale based on income, require higher standards, sound curriculum, small classes, and family engagement, attract and retain excellent teachers with competitive compensation, because we all know teachers definitely don't get what they deserve in terms of the time that they put in and what they create and the leaders that they create in the elementary, high school, and in collegiate level. So definitely competitive compensation. Provide professional development, partner with local agencies for health, social, behavioral services, and guarantee accountability with program evaluations and financial audits. So they also want to be responsible and have a program that's run with integrity as well. So not a lot of this stuff you can find on the website, so I won't bore you with all the, and maybe I'm the only one that's bored by numbers. You might want to hear that. I usually don't want to hear that, so I'm not gonna I'm not gonna bore you with all of the numbers. But I just want to make sure that I tell you some key relevant points. It says that research shows that birth to age 5, that's the most important time for cognitive development. And I feel like as an organization that prides ourselves on service before self, part of that is to make sure that we're helping the youngest people that will basically be the next Rotarians and will be running our city when we can no longer do so. So I think we not only have a privilege, but we also have a responsibility to help our children in this way. And Toledo's future depends on well-educated workforce. Yet, 4 out of 5 children, which is 80%, start school unprepared to learn, and that's just unacceptable. So, you know, really just hoping that we can move forward with the commitment that we initially started in terms of helping our young people get the education they need. Thank you.
You can keep it, Candace. Candace, go ahead and keep the microphone for a second. So with that information that you've given us, do you have a dollar amount that you would like to ask, or are you considering the 100,000 we originally offered?
It's kind of like we'll take whatever we get. No, I'm just playing. No, we do. We need as much money as we can get. And our initial investment, I shouldn't say our initial investment because our initial investment was only $10,000, but our initial commitment was $100,000 to Universal Pre-K. And again, it was contingent on collectively what was happening with the city. And it hasn't really shifted away from what the city is doing, but now we have an organized effort that we didn't have in 2019 to focus the dollars on, and we can have something specific, measurable, and tangible that we can kind of keep track of. I found out from Hope Toledo that the cost to educate a child is $12,500. And in each current Hope Toledo classroom, there's 20 children. So it's roughly $250,000 to fund a center, an early childhood education center. But Hope subsidized 5,000 of that, which means that it ends up being about 100,000 per site. So this will give us an opportunity to, for lack of a better term, because it wouldn't be adopting, but we could kind of collectively support maybe one specific center that we could then track the success from that early childhood piece, and then we could track them throughout. I think it would be a really good thing for us to participate in, but it will also be really good data for us to support that not only did we contribute financially, but we have some evidence to back the return on our investment, and we'll be able to do that because that's what Hope Toledo is also doing, tracking the data, measuring the success of the program, because of course we know if you can't measure, I mean, if you can't prove that something is successful, then what's the point of it? So we want to make sure that we're able to put our money where our mouth is, but also get some return on it.
All right, thank you so much. Dick, could you go into a little detail about what the consequences are of excessive exposure to lead?
Sure. Again, there are numerous problems with early exposure to overexposure to lead. There are brain and neural damage, kidney and bone damage in mothers. There's low birth weight for babies. And it all, besides other problems, it learns to behavioral and learning disabilities, and kind of gets to what Candace said about the importance of universal pre-K. These children then end up behind as they enter school, and it snowballs after that. They get further and further behind their peers because they're not ready, and they have all these cognitive and behavioral problems. And studies have shown that often leads to dropping out of school, unemployment, poverty, and often incarceration. The other statistic that I want to point out is at any given time, there are approximately 3,400 to 3,500 children in the Toledo community who are overexposed to lead. And that's a big issue.
Thank you. I'm going to pass it to Adam. Adam? You already answered your first question. Can you tell us what benefit this water project will have on Toledo, our Rotary Club, and our surrounding region?
Sure, absolutely. And I did put handouts on your tables as far as the watershed. A lot of people get a question of what is the Mommy watershed and then where does it go? And you can see how extensive it is. And every step along the way, we want to try to filter out as much of that nutrient pollution as we can. And through this project, we'll see a lot of collaboration. As I mentioned, we're not going to solve it here in Toledo. We need to work with other Rotary clubs, other districts, if we can, Rotary International. So it really does increase our collaboration, not only with other clubs, but with other organizations as well. Advances the public image of the Rotary Club of Toledo as a club, as an organization that is dedicated to environmental sustainability, something that is very important to our younger generations as we look to grow our membership and get more people in. I think that's a good image that we want to have. It's also a catalyst for change. We want to inspire other organizations, other businesses, other individuals to also be environmentally sustainable. And we have 3 projects in mind, but we want more than that. We want to continue this snowball effort as things continue to people learn what we're doing, get inspired, and find more locations. It is also going to give Toledo Rotary a seat at the table for some of these larger projects, similar to what Marcy Capter mentioned when she was here with the Great Lakes Authority that is coming down the line soon. If we're at that table, we can help inspire and continue to push change, and in the end, improve water quality for Toledo and make it a healthier place for generations to come.
Great, all right. At this time, we'd like to open it up for questions. So if you have a question, please make your way to the floor mic, and please ask who the question is for. And while he's walking over there, Adam, could you just briefly say what partners you're hoping to work with and where the additional funding might come?
Sure. So just like we had in the Liberty Center project, that was multiple Rotary clubs that came together, but also a big part of that was the Black Swamp Nature Conservancy. For the project down in St. Mary's, we're looking at partnering with the Nature Conservancy. So those types of organizations can also bring to the table funding from things like H2O Ohio and other state and federal funding. So really the goal of this is to really seed these projects. It's easier to fundraise money when you have some money to start with. And if we can use that to seed these projects, then they can truly grow into something that is transformational.
Thank you. All right. We have a nice line of questions over there. So if you ask away, and then if you guys could all keep your answers as succinct as possible. All right.
Right after Marcy Capter gave her talk, the U.S. Supreme Court came out with a decision saying that the Clean Water Act only applies to primary flows into Lake Erie, not secondary, which is huge for Lake Erie. That's where most of it comes from, and that's just a huge impact. Can you comment on how that's impacting, what our project could be in Ohio?
Yeah, what the Supreme Court decision said, which is the Sackett case out in Idaho, it was a family who had land that they wanted to develop, but it was designated as wetlands. They were being required to do extensive permitting and restricted in what they could do with their own, essentially their own private property. That's what they argued. Supreme Court found in their favor, and their ruling said that if you had a wetlands area that was not consistently and continuously connected to the water stream that then would flow out to larger bodies of water. In other words, if any of us around here, if you drive down the roads in the spring when there are puddles out in the middle of farm fields, that puddle is not necessarily connected to a stream, which then goes into a tributary, which goes into the Maumee and goes into Lake Erie. Under the old understanding, those disconnected wetlands would in fact be restricted from being used as the owner would prefer, and they would be forced to be permitted before they could be developed in any way. This decision says that the owners will no longer have to go through that. So it makes a significant change in the extensive definition of wetlands, but in the state of Ohio, it doesn't make as much of a difference because Ohio actually already has legislation regarding disconnected wetlands. So our projects would not be impacted by that, and it will not impact Ohio in anywhere near what it will impact the rest of the country.
Do you anticipate litigation that Ohio folks will cite the U.S. Supreme
Oh, there's
Court
going
case
to be
saying
all
the
kinds
Ohio
of
laws.
litigation. Yeah, this is, the only things in the articles that have come out that I totally disagree with is the articles say that this controverted settled law before. And in fact, the waters of the U.S. issue has never been settled. It's been controversial from day one, and it's gone back and forth. So it's not surprising that this is taking a different tack. It will definitely be in court forever.
Thanks.
Thank you for your presentation. President Cindy, if I understood you correctly, we have 107,000 left in our transformational. Listening to early childhood education, 90,000 of that was committed to them that they have not used, which leaves us a very minute amount for these other projects. I'm curious as to how we see the ability to continue these other projects and if we're going to be looking for alternative funding.
Yes. So what probably will happen, depending on the voting, we would have to come up with a certain number that maybe we would designate to each project. Say if the group or the membership decides they would like all 3 projects to continue, we would have to look to see where we might want to designate the certain amount of funding for each. So where Candace mentioned that if we wanted to sponsor a whole program, that's what the amount would be. We may have to take a look back, go back to John Jones and see what other options might be available. Same thing with the water, where they've asked for us to put the seed money out for 3 projects. We may have to reconsider that and maybe only do 2. The hope is that we are going to be doing some fundraising going into next year, and we'll be able to add to the funds that we have. We have one fundraiser we're working on for October, and then hopefully another one shortly after that in 2024. So that's what we have for right now. I do want to say that I believe there was this, I'm just going to come out and say it, some confusion as to the amount of money that we had when we first started the whole transformational projects. I was mostly involved with the universal pre-K. But as we've met as leadership in the executive committee, we were under the understanding that we each thought we had $100,000. That, we don't know how that happened, but Janina, everyone thought they had $100,000. So we've had to really step on what our plans were, and we're just going to have to be really open-minded when we decide what projects we want to work on, whether they're all 3 doable, if we eliminate one and only focus on another. But that's something that all of you will have to try to really determine. There's more information out in the Spoke on the website. You can use the QR code to find that. Each of these representatives are available to take questions. And then obviously leadership will be meeting to see how we're going to be able to increase the funds that we have.
I just want to say briefly, at this point, I don't see any need for dollars for the lead abatement efforts. It's effort, it's organization, it's bringing other people around. So right now, I don't see any. Down the road, I don't know, but I wouldn't be looking for money in the next couple of years, probably, just so that's clear.
Thank you, Dick. Thank you, Sharon.
Well, Dick, I want to know where that 10,000 went to the public schools as far as results. If the students were tested, were there results from that test? And maybe money goes towards doing research that creates awareness to bring other stakeholders in.
What I recall hearing from, it's been 3 or 4 years, the TPS does follow up when they discover that children are overexposed to lead, and they do have representatives go into the homes to make suggestions and see what they can do to alleviate the problem. Beyond that, Gary, I don't know, but that TPS, there is a follow-up, but I don't know the extent of it.
But we don't know what the statistical results were of mass testing. 'Cause one of the problems with lead abatement issues and measurement is that the students are the markers. So they don't necessarily volunteer to have their blood tested. So the question is, with a $10,000 commitment for one period of time, is there a collective data that says this is the percentage of those tested that had a lead level that was elevated?
Yeah, and I don't know the answer to that. Yeah.
Would TPS have that?
They should have it. With COVID too, they might have been prevented from, I mean, I don't know how much testing they did during COVID, and they were restricted to going into homes, obviously, after that. So, but TPS, they'd be the ones to ask.
Yeah, because I remember polio was abated in public schools because students were given polio vaccines in the public schools itself. So here we have public schools testing. Did they go into the homes, or did they test the students in the school to eradicate or create awareness of lead?
I'll answer that just because I was working there when this went on. And at the time, they got funding to get a new van that was a community medical van that would kind of drive into neighborhoods and provide just kind of small level medical services, but also dental services. And that through the Early Childhood Education Initiative, which they already had with Head Start, that was the population of students that they used to test. So I'm pretty sure you could get, if you wanted, hard facts, Dr. Amy Allen at Toledo Public Schools could provide that information to you, because that is who led that, the lead testing. But it was testing the students, not their homes. It was testing to see had they been exposed, not to see was their home lead, free or not.
Right. And that would just be the accountability of the 10,000 to say, we give you 10,000, you give us back data.
Yeah. And I just think that should be with anything, that we support. We should also ask for some reporting back to us so that we can always know how our dollars were spent and if it worked, what we were trying to accomplish.
Okay, thank you.
So I just want to say thank you to the panelists for really leading the way in the projects and informing us about what's going on. My question really is about the pre-K piece, because it's such a big issue that's going on. And again, as an educator, I understand, it seems like a mountain to climb. And so every little bit helps. One of the pieces, and I was thinking that maybe you can elaborate on, concerning the engagement, family engagement, because statistically, and other pre-K programs around the United States actually have a requirement a parent or individuals in the home to be involved concerning that, and then being able to have that student actually grow when they go off to school. So statistically, it's higher. So can you talk a little bit about if there is some kind of mandate of, again, I was just looking at some of them, requirements about parent-teacher conference and engagement in the home, and even those parents or individuals that are helping raise a child with literacy. So, because maybe they don't know. So I was just wondering, do you have anything in requirement in that component? Has that been fleshed out yet?
So yes, Hope Toledo, that's one of the things that, first of all, to even be a Hope Toledo site, you have to have a certain star rating with the state of Ohio. Your child care facility must. And one of the things about the star ratings, they're really difficult to get them. So people, when they're looking for child care for their children, they're looking for specific things. And how you get those star ratings are things like the kind of curriculum that's available, things that you come up with in terms of providing different opportunities, the way that you keep your records. I mean, it's a lot that goes into it. So Hope Toledo, while they have a pre-K initiative, they're actually a cradle to career organization. So family engagement runs the gamut from universal pre-K age children to their college, like kids going off to college. Family engagement is a big part of what they do. And so the part that I read in terms of what they're working for sustainable public preschool funding to do, that was one of the things: require higher standards, a sound curriculum, small classes, and family engagement. So that's a big part of what they strive to accomplish in all of their centers. And so with the 10 that they have, that's part of what they're doing. And then the 10 that they are getting ready to add with the increased funding.
Yeah, I think I was on specifics with the goals, but thank you for that.
And, and if you want the goals or any more details related to Hope Toledo, I'm sure you could find more specific details on their website as far as their program goes. We're focusing really just on the universal pre-K piece, but that's the partner that we would like to engage with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really quick, thank you to all of the panelists for presenting. What I wanted to ask was also about universal pre-K. First, I wanted to ask, even on a small scale, have any students been a part of this universal pre-K program so far?
Yes, and first of all, I just wanted to say that I am so appreciative that you would come to the mic as a guest and ask a question. I even told our past president, I was like, we should have had her go first because she came to the mic. So congratulations on your speech and also for your willingness to come to the mic. Yes. So right now there are 10 centers and each center has 20 children. So at this point in time, it's 200 children being served. And this is also, I believe, the second year of implementation. So it may even be some students in kindergarten right now who started their, pathway through Hope Toledo at the pre-K stage. So yes, there are some children currently being served, and then the city was able to give a large gift recently of $1 million actually to help them to double the number of children that they're able to serve. And so it's small but mighty efforts, and every little bit helps. So yes, and we're hoping to get more data as this school year just concluded on how some of those students are doing.
Okay. On the flip side, the Department of Education in February of 2021 released an analysis on 3 different studies they did in New York, Tennessee, and Georgia. And the impacts for all of them were that students were ahead going into kindergarten through 2nd grade roughly, but 3rd grade through 5th grade and beyond, things started to go downhill. All of the advances that they had made on their peers started to fall back, especially in math and science. And rates for behavior and also even incarceration tended to go up for the students who had attended this voluntary universal pre-K. So do we know overall for the city of Toledo, because those were statewide, this is citywide, if the long-term impacts will be more beneficial in the long term?
That's a great question, and I'll tell you, at this point, I don't have an answer. I wish our superintendent, who's also a Rotarian, was here, because I'm sure he would have something very specific and, solid to tell you. What I can tell you, though, is that in Toledo Public School District, students who are adequately prepared had less interventions throughout their tenure with TPS, and they had less disciplinary issues. They had less, but it was comprehensive. So coming in prepared, having an involved family, a lot of different things. So I do know, at least in our school district, just, thinking back as an employee there, not looking at hard data, the answer would be yes to a degree. I did want to tell you too, another thing to consider when you think about students in the classroom, curriculum is designed on an annual basis. So if you have children like currently in school and they take a standardized test, it'll say they are, like my daughter who is in the 9th grade, she may take a test to say she's 9.2, which means 9th grade, 2nd month. And the responsibility of an educator is to get her from 9th grade to 10th grade. So if you come in already behind as a kindergartner, they're going to spend that whole year just trying to get you to kindergarten. And so it's year. So next year you're coming in the 1st grade, but you still only got to kindergarten. Do you see what I mean? And so it is. And that's how come Ohio has the 3rd grade reading guarantee, which kind of tries to mitigate some of that 3rd through 5th grade stuff you were talking about by making sure that they're adequately prepared, at least in reading at grade 3.
So overall, especially in combination with Ohio's policies, citywide, the long-term impacts and even the impacts right now are totally beneficial for all of the students.
So far, but it's still very early because, like I said, they only have had a couple, classes go through, and they just had the opportunity to double it, but they haven't even started that part yet because they just got the funding. I think it might have even been just like a few weeks ago it was announced. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all for your leadership. I'll be quick. And Candace, this is on you again, but it'd be great if Hope would share the data that they have so far with the students that they're supporting, just to gain an understanding, is what they're supporting working?
So what I can do, because they do have all of that, and for this particular purpose, I didn't bring a whole lot of details, but they do have it available, and I think it's on their website. Some more of it is in the documents that we gave for you to look at on our website. But I can actually get more from them on how the students are doing now, who are currently in their programs, and also any that would have gone to kindergarten, how that's looking for them.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to throw a request out on the floor. As the co-chair of the Public Image Committee, it would be great, say if our remaining budget is $100,000, so this is probably more to you, President Cindy, but each of the committees, you should have a request, some input into this. That 5% of this maybe go towards the Public Image Committee to promote what we're doing here. So we are doing great work, but it would be great to have our, the residents here in Toledo and prospective members know about what we're doing here too.
Maybe I'll be the last one. Oh, no, here's Bob. This is more of a, thank you all for your leadership in these different issues, but this is more for President Cindy. Am I to understand that this panel discussion is for preparation and a vote next week? So this is what we're doing as a transformational project. Are there room for others? We're picking one versus two. I'm a little fuzzy about the process here.
That's fine. So there will be more direction when you actually see what the ballot looks like. And like, it was good that Sharon mentioned about the funding not all being there, because that's part of my wrap up here, is that there'll be other options out there that are breakdowns of what we could do. I'm asking for, I'm just gonna say, the Water Committee is asking for $60,000, but here's what we could do for $20,000, $40,000, and you're just gonna have to choose. We can't obviously choose more projects than we have the funds for currently. So there'll be more information to come on that, and Candace will do the same. And as Dick has mentioned, his is all time and treasure, not really, time and talent, not really treasure.
So I guess follow up, these are the only options we have for transformational projects.
For right now, correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Since we're a little bit over time, just thought I'd add a comment, and actually I had the same thought Cindy did, that like getting a logo in a classroom or wherever is probably a good one. Just since Hope Toledo did come out with their first annual report, they've only had 1 year of a pilot study, so take it a little bit with I don't know how much you want to read into only 1 year, but their results were a substantial increase in the kids ready for kindergarten versus other kids.
Thank you.
Okay. Last question, Jim.
Well, last one. Okay. Again, this first discussion panel that I've been in, so this was very interesting, very helpful, so I appreciate it. And I like Dick Wolf's answer when it comes to the financial side. That's the right answer, a good answer. So just a couple observations, just again, first time in. One is that, the water abatement, to me is something that's really important, because it almost all starts with the fundamental that, if you don't have good, clean drinking water, then nothing else really matters, because, you don't have a sustainable community, neighborhoods and things of that nature. So I think that's very important. But I guess the one question to Candace and to the panel as a whole is that clearly we see the importance of education and preschool and things of that nature, but at the same time, how do you balance that with coming out of the pandemic, that we have kids that are in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade that are now 2 to 3 years behind in their educational process, that we need to get this existing group of generational kids caught back up. So there's the need for that next generation, that we need to get them prepared for kindergarten and get them to move ahead. But then on the opposite end, we have kids that are in 6th, 7th, 8th grade that are still at the 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade of reading, or senior, junior in high school that are at the freshman year, 8th grade year, in reading, writing, and arithmetic. So how do we balance that? And I don't have an answer. I'm just putting it out there. How do we balance that with TPS, Washington Local, Hope Toledo, and everything else? What is the right answer?
Well, I don't think there is, and I'm in agreement with you. There is a high population of students that are behind due to COVID. A lot of mental health challenges have set students back. Just being at home and in the virtual environment, it didn't work for all students. It's certain classes of students that they just refer to them as the COVID class, because of all of the challenges that they face and the impact. I think for today is really focusing on how do we wrap up, put a bow on the project that we started that we really didn't even get to implement in any way, and just trying to, re-engage our commitment. But I do think looking ahead overall, and that's how we, another way to impact that is through our youth services grants. We get a lot of organizations that write grants to us or write requests for grants to us that are student-serving organizations, that some of them provide those opportunities for the older students that may not be pre-K but have needs. We've helped diabetes youth services, those students. We've helped after-school programs that do tutoring. We've helped TPS, some of their, programs that their partners come in and offer. So I do think we are doing some work, but I agree that, looking ahead, we need to think comprehensively, and maybe our approach at some point could be cradle to career, where we're serving the whole student, from start to finish, not just early childhood. But today, that was what we were doing, was getting back to the original conversation that we had.
Thank you. Okay, so for now, that's a wrap. I'd like to very much thank all of you for your preparation, the leadership you've taken, and the information you provided. Please, I would just want to refer back as you're looking over the information over the next week. Like I said, it will be in the spoke, it's on the website, and there'll be more emails to follow. But just deciding whether the projects that will be proposed on the ballot will move forward. Do we have the money or the focus or the bandwidth to really make an impact and do a really good job? And should the projects have partners? And as you've heard today, all three of them have quite a few partners that we would be working with. And just want to make sure we have the commitment. So if we do start some of these, they are long-term projects that are not going to be done just this year. They'll be done over several years. So just try to keep an open mind. And if you have any questions, feel free to about the transformational project to one of these people. I can't come up with that word I'm trying to come up with, but leaders. And then also feel free to reach out to myself, Travis, Jackie, and we'll try to help you out. So thank you for sticking around. I know the meeting went over quite a bit, but it's really nice to see how interested everyone is. And I think today we only have one meeting. It's the preparatory meeting for Tim's district conference here in Toledo. We're meeting in Summit A. So thank you all. Hope you all have a great week. Oh, finally.
Thanks. Oh, of course. Thanks.
Thank